Well, the 2026 Maine Senate election will be a pivotal election in the 2026 cycle. Obviously, we know that Democrats have a lot of vulnerabilities going into the Senate map in 2026, and Maine is one of these seats that is a toss-up that is held by a Republican that Democrats believe they could flip. So today we are going to be looking at an overview of the Maine 2026 Senate election, looking at the current candidates, who's jumping in, do Democrats have a chance to flip the seat in Maine? Now, obviously we know incumbent Senator Susan Collins, she was elected initially back in 1966, I believe. She was elected from the state of Maine by about 5.5 points and has been elected every year since then. 2002, she was elected against, at that time, Sherry Pingree by about 17 points, and then was reelected again in 2008 by 22 points, and then again in 2014 by 37 points. Huge margins. And then elected in 2020 by roughly 8.5 points. So she obviously has a very strong electoral track record in the state of Maine, regardless if it was a good year for Republicans, a bad year for Republicans, or in between. She has performed in all of them. You go back, look at 2008, great year for Democrats nationwide. Look at this, they flipped Alaska, New Mexico, Colorado, Oregon, Minnesota, Virginia, North Carolina, huge flips. New Hampshire, huge flips. Susan Collins won it by 22 points. Fast forward to 2014, great year for the Republican Party, great year. President Obama's second midterm, it was a shellacking for the Democrat Party. Alaska flipped, Colorado, Iowa, Louisiana, Arkansas, North Carolina, West Virginia, they all flipped. Montana, all flipped. And South Dakota, oh my gosh, all flipped to the Republican Party. And in a great year, Susan Collins won re-election by 37 points. So obviously you can see that regardless of the type of year, she knows how to win. She has won time and time again, regardless of what the circumstances were. Now, Maine is a very nuanced state, and there's no doubt about this. This is at the end of the day, is a liberal state. It voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election by about 7 points, just under 7 points. But currently, right now, both U.S. House districts in Maine are held by Democrats. You have a governor who's a Democrat. Both state legislators are controlled by Democrats. So this is a Democrat stronghold at the end of the day. Maine has not voted for a Republican since 1988. Since 1992, they have voted for a Democrat every single year. Despite the huge gains that Democrats have made, Susan Collins has consistently been able to perform in the state of Maine. There's no doubt about it. So it is nuanced. It is a liberal state, and it is considered one of the most rural states in America. But Susan Collins, with her crossover appeal, has definitely been able to cultivate a constituency that gets out and votes for her. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, when it comes to the general election, no matter what polling says this far out, at the end of the day, I think Susan Collins has a decent chance at winning. She definitely has a decent chance. It's like you have to give her a 60, 65, 70% chance of winning in this race here. Because at the end of the day, she may not be popular standalone. Because there was a recent poll that came out. This came out from the University of New Hampshire that showed 71% of respondents do not believe that Susan Collins deserves to be reelected. That includes 84% of Democrats, 67% of independents, and 57% of Republicans. Just 12% of respondents said they have a favorable view of Susan Collins, while 58% said they had an unfavorable view. And now, something I want to consider here. Let's take a little step back in time to the year 2020. 2020, Susan Collins was expected to lose re-election. By all polling standards, she was expected to lose re-election. If you look at the polling, this is all of the polling leading up to Election Day. On Election Day, the two big aggregators, 270 to win and Real Clear Politics, had her opponent Gideon up either by 4 points or about 6.5 points. Look at this. Every single poll had Sarah Gideon winning, beating Susan Collins, an incumbent senator who has been elected 4 other times at that point since 1996. She's won in good year for Republicans and she's won in bad years for Republicans. But still, these polls showed that that Susan Collins was going to win. There was very, very few polls that showed that she was going to win. Very few polls showed that Susan Collins was going to win. But you know what happened? Look at 2020. Look at how that race turned out. Didn't turn out as well for the Democrats as they thought it would. Susan Collins won the state of Maine by almost 9 percentage points. She lost 2 counties in total. 2 counties in total she lost. It was obviously a very tight election. Democrats pumped a lot of money into this race. And we're talking a lot of money to go into this race to go up against the Republican Party. And look at this. The polling even showed it was either a toss-up. Not a single pollster or prediction service thought that Susan Collins was going to win re-election in 2020. But you know what? She did. And she did it by a pretty decent margin. For a state that at the same time voted for Susan Collins by 8.5 points, also voted for President Biden by what, 9 points? Yeah, 9 points. You have almost an 18-point swing there between Biden and Susan Collins. A very, very big swing. And obviously, the polling was there. It was. But that's just not how reality turned out for the state of Maine. And like we said, they have a very nuanced history. Obviously, they are Democrats. It is a Democrat stronghold. But it is still competitive for a Republican like Susan Collins. Now, I think when Susan Collins decides to retire, I think this is going to be flipped by the Democrats. Republicans need to find other places to pick up Senate seats because this is going to be tough. And as of right now, I don't see a successor, you could say, to Susan Collins to be the next Republican senator from the state of Maine. Now, the 2026 race overall for the Senate is not going to be super tight. Like, overall, Republicans are expected to hold the Senate. It would almost be a miracle. For me, I have the Democrats ceiling at 49 seats. That's it. That's where I have the ceiling at for the Democrats. I don't believe they are going to go higher than that. Because even if the Democrats hold Minnesota, hold Michigan, somehow hold the state of Georgia, flip North Carolina, hold New Hampshire, and pick up Maine, they're still only at 49 seats, including the 2 independents. It's like, where else are Democrats going to go? Okay, maybe they could go to Alaska, but I don't see them winning in Montana, Iowa, Kansas, Texas, Florida, South Carolina, Ohio. I just frankly do not see that happening. So at like maybe if you really try and stretch their ceiling, they're at 50-50. But I have a really hard time seeing that happen in Alaska. Now, granted, they have ranked choice voting and crazier things have happened in the state before. But I believe Democrat ceiling is at 49 votes or seats. And I don't believe that they're going to hit that ceiling, to be honest with you. I believe that Susan Collins will hold on. I believe that Brian Kemp will run in Georgia and will win. Tom Tillis, that's another story. Do I think Roy Cooper can beat Tom Tillis? I do. But, we're just going to have to see how it all plays out. But now getting back to the 2026 Maine Senate race, what we are actually looking at here. So as of right now, Susan Collins has not announced that she's running, but she has said that she does intend to run. Right now, she's got about $3.2 million cash on hand, not a bad way to start. And we already know that the National Senatorial Republican Committee, chaired by Tim Scott, they are looking to put tens of millions of dollars to work in the state of Maine. No doubt about that. They have a lot of money that they are going to put into this race because they need to hold it. Tim Scott's goal is to get to a 55-seat majority. And you know how that happens? That's how it happens. Maybe even through New Hampshire. That happens. Obviously, Chris Sununu is not running for re-election there. So it kind of makes it a little bit more difficult. But this is Republicans. They want to win. They need to get to 55 Senate seats. That's where they're trying to get. Is like you have the National Senatorial Republican Chair, Tim Scott, saying that it could cost anywhere from $400 to $600 million in Maine that they're willing to spend. And they're willing to spend up to $700 million in North Carolina. $700 million. You're looking at almost $1 billion between Maine and North Carolina to hold these as Republican seats. That's what we're looking at right here. $1 billion they're looking to spend. Just look at Ohio. Bernie Moreno's race cost roughly $500 million, more than $500 million. And obviously they have to win there again. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. No one is saying this is going to be easy for the Republican Party. But looking at the Democrat side, probably the most well-known, there are probably three names that are well-known who are going to be in this race. Jared Golden, who is the representative from Maine's 2nd Congressional District, who currently is running for re-election in Maine's 2nd Congressional District. Remember, Golden won this by like less than a half a percentage point, while Trump won it by like 9 points. Like, Trump won the 2nd District in 24 by 9 points. Golden won the 2nd District. Let's go to the House. He won the 2nd District by literally a half a percentage point. A half a percentage point. It's going to be tough. It is going to be a very, very tough election in the state of Maine. And Jared Golden, he probably, I don't want to say most well-known, but he's well-known for breaking with the Democrat Party. You look at what happened. He was the one House Democrat who voted to advance the Republican-backed spending bill or continuing resolution that would fund the government through September. You look at people like Janet Mills, who's the current governor, who currently has been in a spat with President Trump over funding for the university system there due to their views and their policies related to transgender athletes. And then, of course, Shelley Pingree, who was the U.S. representative from the state of Maine, their 1st congressional district, since 2009. And funny enough, she also ran against Susan Collins back in 2002. I want to take a step back in history right here, or a step back in time. She ran against Susan Collins in 2002, lost by a little under 100,000 votes, but it was a pretty embarrassing loss, I would say. She ran against her and then eventually became in 2009, or was elected in 2008, to be the representative from the 1st congressional district for the state of Maine. Now, ultimately, this is going to be a very, very tough election on both sides. There's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars spent in the state to hold Susan Collins' seat. We know that. It is going to be tough. But as of right now, I do have this as a lean Republican state. We have this poll that came out, and it shows, everybody hates Susan Collins. Okay, everybody may hate Susan Collins, but at the end of the day, who are you going to vote for? We saw it in the polling leading up to 2024. There was a lot of people, who maybe morally did not feel like Donald Trump was a morally good person, but they liked his policies. They didn't have to love him, but they liked what he was doing. They liked his policies that he promoted. When it comes down to the wire, I think that she's still going to win re-election. Do I think it could be closer than what it was in 2020? Oh, absolutely. I could see it being within 5 points in 2026. But ultimately, the U.S. Senate race in Maine is going to be competitive. This is going to wrap things up for today, folks. Let me know your thoughts down below. Is there anything I missed in here? Is there something else you want me to cover about the Maine Senate race? I'd really love to hear any data points that you have. Let me know. We will get it put out for you. But drop down below, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future, folks, and we will catch you next time.